Hello board game brothers and sisters, I'm Adam Singer and welcome to another episode where I'll be letting you know of all the board games launching on Kickstarter and Gamefound over the next week. If you're new here, we do this every single week going over all the upcoming campaigns, so if you do want to stay up to date, this is definitely a place to be. But I normally do like to start these episodes by going over some news and announcements that I just found out about, but I don't have anything new to let you know about this week. So I'll just do my usual shout out to Alex over at Boardgame Co. because him and I do work together keeping track of all these upcoming campaigns. And if you do like this type of content where I let you know of some of these campaigns that are launching each week, you'll definitely want to check out his channel because he posts a video at the start of each month going over the entire month and letting you know of some of the heavy hitters that you can look forward to. He also has a ton of other great content as well, including reviews and playthroughs and commentary on different topics within the industry. And if any of that does sound interesting to you, go ahead and check him out, subscribe if you do like his content, and you can find a link to his channel in the description below. We do have a bit of a shorter week this time around, but there's always games to cover, so let's check them out. And the first campaign we have launches on March 31st, and this one's called Mine 77. And this one's a really interesting competitive game that has this really cool double rondel system, and I will let you know all about that in a second here because I did already film this one a couple weeks back, but it got pushed back until now, so I'll just go ahead and roll that footage for you in a second here. But I do want to mention that I don't normally like to start these videos by re-rolling footage that I've already aired in a previous episode, but this is the only game that I have launching on the 31st, and I always do these in chronological order, so my hands are tied here. If you already saw this footage in that previous episode, feel free to skip ahead. I do have timestamps down below, but if you haven't checked this one out yet, it looks really cool, and my past self will tell you all about it now. This one's a competitive resource management and worker movement game where players are going to be taking on the role of overseers managing their teams of workers in the massive Mine 77. The goal is to be the most productive by balancing efficiency, administration, and a little bit of underhand dealing. The primary mechanism for taking actions in this game is to assign or move your workers to different locations within two interconnected rondels. There is the surface rondel, which is going to be used for admin and logistics, and then there is the mine rondel where resources are going to be extracted. The game plays over a series of days that are broken down into a morning shift, an afternoon shift, and a night shift, which is primarily resetting the board and checking the different conditions that players were able to complete. But during the morning and afternoon shifts, players are going to be simultaneously selecting an action card from their hand of work order cards, and these are all the same for all the players at the beginning of the game, but these are going to be determining how many movements you can make with a worker on the rondel in order to get access to a new action, and each of these cards will also have an initiative value, and whichever player has the lowest initiative is going to be going first. But the different actions are going to allow you to mine, farm, and process different resources with the goal to try and complete different government orders that will earn you victory points if you are able to complete them. Steam is a key resource that players are going to have to manage in order to operate the mines, and the mines do also have a limited amount of space, and as you explore more of the mine, there can also be all sorts of dangers that can injure your workers. If too much steam is generated or not enough, then that can also have some negative consequences for all the players. The game does also allow for bartering and a blackjack mechanism if you do want to push your luck, and there is also an element of deck building where you can go ahead and purchase more cards that you can add into your hand to give you more options for movements and actions in future turns. But players will be able to play multiple of these work order cards within a single shift to take multiple actions in that shift, and you can also play additional cards if you do want to work overtime, but that does come at a cost. The night shift is reserved for maintenance, which means that it does work a little bit differently because all players are going to be doing during the night shift is resetting the board and then checking the different goals and objectives for that day, and then applying the positive or negative consequences to each of the players depending on if they were able to reach that day's goals. The player with the most victory points at the end of the final day wins the game, and if you do want to check this one out, I will have it linked down below. And launching on April 1st, we have STEERY, which is a competitive storytelling party game, and the way this game works is that at the start of each game, players are going to be dealt a hand of 5 story cards, and these are going to have different prompts or situations on them, and players are going to be using these to try and create a story. But the way that all of this unfolds is at the start of the game, there's going to be a character card that gets drawn, and then whichever player is going first can use any amount of those story cards from their hand to integrate with that character in order to tell their story. Each of the cards from your hand that you're able to integrate into that story are also going to have points associated with them, and for every card that you're able to use, you're going to be keeping that card for its victory points at the end of the game. At the end of your turn, you're always going to be replacing any story cards that you played with new ones from the deck so that you're always maintaining a hand of 5 cards. Rounds continue like this, with the next player adding to your story, playing any cards from their hand, so on and so forth, until someone draws the end story card from the deck, and then it's going to be the next player's turn to end the story. The catch with this game is that throughout the story, you can actually draw additional character cards from the deck when you're going to draw more cards into your hand, and every time that happens, new characters are going to be added into the plot. Every time a player is telling a part of the story, they always do have to include every character, which means that it gets more and more difficult the more characters that get added. The other players can also object to your addition to the story during your turn if they feel like it just wasn't good enough, and there are certain rules around this. For example, if it just didn't move the story forward well enough, or if the cards you're trying to integrate just didn't have a very significant part in the story that you're trying to tell, or if the plot points that you added just didn't have that cohesion and continuity with the story so far, and you're just trying to force things in, other players might try to call you out on that as well. If enough of the players agree, then you're going to have to take all the cards that you played back into your hand, effectively losing a turn. Alternatively, if you don't think you have a good enough story, you can also pass, and if you choose to pass, then you can discard as many cards in your hand in order to swap them with new ones from the deck. Like I said, the game continues like this until someone draws that end card, and then they're going to be wrapping up the story, and then the player with the most victory points wins the game, but you can go ahead and play another story immediately after. And if you do want to check this one out, you can go ahead and find it in the description down below, and of course, follow along if you do want to get notified when this one launches. Also launching on April 1st, we have a bunch of new expansions for the game Skull Tales, and if you're not familiar with this one, it is a cooperative campaign game where players are all playing as different members on a pirate crew, and this is a game that's going to be playing over multiple different chapters throughout the campaign with an overarching story that will be influenced by the players' decisions, as well as their successes and failures along the way. Players will be able to upgrade their skills and loot and gain prestige that will all carry forward throughout the story. And the way that all of this works is that a chapter is going to be playing over 3 different phases. You're going to be starting with the adventure phase, which is going to be acting sort of like a dungeon crawl experience. We're going to be exploring and battling across a modular map, and turns are going to be alternating between the players and the enemies until the mission is completed. Combat in this phase is resolved using dice rolling. You'll be able to explore a limited area within this phase, but once you've reached those objectives, you're going to be moving into the voyage phase, and this is what allows you to get to other areas of the main map. Each player is going to have their own specific role on the ship, and you're going to be resolving rounds of travel, which will have you drawing different events or fighting different sea monsters. A neat aspect of this phase is that there's always one person with the special role of the captain, but this is not a fixed role, and other players can challenge to try and take that role for themselves. But as much as pirates love plundering and fighting sea monsters, they do also need some R&R, and that's what the port phase is for. And this is a phase that's going to be limited by the number of actions that you're able to take, because each action is going to be costing you a certain amount of time, and you're going to be trying to spend those wisely to do different things like visit different shops to gain new gear and items, or even train to upgrade your different skills or heal some of the damage that you might have gained. This is also an opportunity where you can gather information and meet different NPCs within the town to find some unique opportunities or discover rumors and different information that might help you in the future. But the chapters continue like this until players reach the end of the campaign, and there are multiple endings depending on your successes and the different decisions along the way. But like I said, this campaign is going to be introducing a bunch of new expansions into the game. The Curse of the Caribbean is going to be introducing a bunch of new missions, story paths, and narrative content for 2 new campaigns that do have connected stories. Oh Captain, My Captain is going to be adding an enhanced solo play with smarter allies, as well as new trading ports added to each of the islands. And there's going to be some new mechanisms added for trading contraband and transporting passengers during the voyage phase for some additional bonuses. Just like the Oh Captain, My Captain expansion expands the voyage phase, the Tortuga expansion is going to be expanding the port phase. This is going to be adding some new events, rumors, and different assignments that you can discover, but it's also going to be adding more variety anytime that you visit those different town locations. The Legends of the Caribbean is the biggest of the expansions, adding 12 new playable pirates as well as 4 new full campaigns that you can play in sequence. And of course, there's going to be a bunch of new enemies and new types of enemies, and there's going to be some legendary treasures, terrain tiles, and new tokens added into the game. The Pirates expansion is where you're going to be adding more PvP into the game, because this is going to be adding a brand new mode of play where players can fight each other. If you're interested to learn more about this game or any of the new expansions, I will have this linked in the description down below, and don't forget that you can click to get notified once this one launches. And also launching on April 1st, we have QUARZ, and this one is a competitive capture the flag style game where players are all competing to try and grab the crystal idol and then bring it back to their starting base. This is a game that is set up with a modular board that has a bunch of different tiles with different opportunities they might want to take advantage of, as well as other tiles with different obstacles that might get in your way. But what's really neat about this game is that each player is going to be choosing a different monster faction that they want to play as, and each of these are going to be asymmetrical, and they each come with their own decks of cards. But what's really cool about this whole selection here is that each of these factions is going to have 4 different monsters, but you only actually choose 3 to play in a given game, which means that even if you play the same faction over again, you can try different combinations in order to try different types of strategies. But like I said, each of these monsters do also come with their own decks of cards, which are going to determine the different abilities that you have available for them and different permanent upgrades that you might be able to unlock. But this is a game that plays over a series of rounds, and at the beginning of each round, each player is going to be choosing one of their favorite cards in secret and then simultaneously revealing it. These cards are going to have an ability that you'll be able to use during that round, as well as an initiative value that's going to be determining where you fit in the turn order. But on your turn, you're going to be spending energy in order to take up to 2 actions. These actions might be to move all your monsters a short distance, or one of them a longer distance, or even to attack the other players, having a variety of different effects and sending them flying in different directions. If you're located near one of the shrines on the board, you can also take advantage of its powers in order to manipulate the board in a variety of ways. For example, putting obstacles in front of other players or removing them from yourself. But of course, you can also spend energy to activate those different ability cards that you do have with your monsters. And what's really cool about these is that they are dual use. You can either spend energy in order to take the ability on the card, or instead you can choose to slide it into your board as an upgrade, giving you the ability on the bottom permanently that you'll be able to use for the rest of the game. This makes players more and more powerful as the game goes on, but that is not the only way that this game ramps up, because at the end of each round, there's also going to be a new modifier card that's drawn. And this can do all sorts of things like add new rules into the game, give players additional energy or even additional actions, or just introduce elements of chaos that players are going to have to deal with. But the game continues like this until one of the players is able to get that idol back to their home base, and if that's the case, they win the game. But the game does also feature a timer and a victory point system, so that if no player is able to do that within a reasonable amount of time, there's going to be the player that earned the most victory points by the end of that timer that's going to be the winner instead. If you do want to check this one out, I will have it linked in the description down below, and of course you can click to get notified. The next campaign is also launching on April 1st, and this is the next game coming from Button Shy Games, and this one is called Adventurous. This one can be played either solo or cooperatively, but this is a game where players are going to have a starting card that represents their ship, and then you're going to have a deck of double-sided cards with one side featuring some sort of marvel that you're going to be trying to place throughout the game, and then the other side is going to be featuring different waypoints that you're going to be connecting together into a single contiguous path, trying to match up certain icons close to each other to allow you to place certain marvels depending on the sets that they need, but then also trying to have a certain amount of those icons revealed at the end of the game to score you more victory points. But I think I can give you a really good idea of how this game plays because Button Shy was kind enough to send me a copy, and I can quickly go over how you set up a game depending on difficulty, how a round plays, and the general strategy and goals that you're trying to achieve. As I mentioned, this game does use double-sided cards, and you can see all these different map cards, but on the other side is a whole bunch of different marvels, and you're only going to be using 5 marvels in a single game, which means that there is a whole lot of variety every time that you put this one out on the table. Each of these different marvels are also ranked with a Roman numeral as well as a color, and that determines the difficulty of that marvel, and the rules provide a table of how many of each of these you'll be including depending on how difficult you want the game to be. I've done a lot of these playthroughs for Button Shy now, and when I play these games off camera, I get absolutely destroyed by them, but for whatever reason, when I play them on camera, I tend to do pretty well, so I'm going to be playing on the veteran difficulty here, hopefully showing you how challenging these games can be, and maybe even getting humbled just a little bit. So for the veteran difficulty, I needed 1 level 1 card, 2 level 2, and 2 level 3, and I did just randomly select these from the deck of cards. If you want, you can go ahead and just select the exact cards that you want to play with, especially once you do get more familiar with this game. As I mentioned, if you're playing with this side of your boat up, you're going to be getting 3 additional restrictions, which do make the game more difficult. And you might have noticed that they correlate to the 3 different difficulties of the marvels. And the reason for that is because whichever marvel is currently active, that difficulty level is going to be dictating which effect is active on this card. And I will just show you the other side of the card here, but it just has a little bit of flavor text. It doesn't have any effect in the game. The game ends once all the cards have been put into play, but like I said, this is our starting card, so we'll just throw this down here. And then all the marvels are just going to get randomly shuffled together, so we'll go ahead and do that. And then whichever one I draw on the top is going to be the active marvel at the start of the game. So I'm not going to look. We'll cut the deck, and this is going to be our active marvel. You just place it next to the ship. The rest can just go up here for now. Because the level 2 difficulty marvel is currently active, it means this second restriction is going to be put into play. Because the level 2 marvel was put into play, it's now the active marvel, which means that the second restriction on this card is going to be activated, which is going to add a little bit of difficulty when we add these map cards. On a turn, you're always going to be choosing whether you want to explore or if you want to discover. If you're going to explore, you're always going to be drawing 2 cards from the path deck and putting them into play. And anytime that you draw one of these cards, you can choose whether you want to draw from the top or if you want to draw blindly from the bottom. Each of these cards will always have 2 waypoints on them indicated by these stars, and then a number of path segments connecting them together. They can also have a variety of different icons on them that are each worth 2 victory points at the end of the game if those icons are visible up to a certain limit, and I'll come back to that in a second here, with the exception of the whirlpool here, which is actually -3 victory points at the end of the game, so you do want to cover up as many of those as possible. The caveat with all of this is that at the end of the game, you're also going to be making sure that you don't have more than 4 shark fins, more than 3 tentacles, or more than 2 tridents, because if you breach any of those limits, don't even bother adding up the victory points because you have immediately lost the game. The other thing these icons are used for is to meet the requirements in order to perform a discover action. Anytime you perform a discover action, that's going to allow you to put either the active marvel or the marvel at the top of the marvel deck into play. But in order to do that, you do need to meet the requirements of that card. If we take a look at this card here, you'll notice in the bottom right corner, it has a 3, and then it has specifically a shark fin and a tentacle. This means that we have to at least cover a shark fin and a tentacle, and then also cover 3 of any other icons. That means that to place this specific card, we need to get those icons grouped together in such a way that we're able to cover them with the card. If you're able to place all of these cards before the end of the game, then that's going to be earning you 5 victory points. But if you're not able to, you're not going to get those victory points, and then you're also going to be losing 5 for each card that you weren't able to play. There's a couple more rules with this, but I think we can just jump into it and I can show you exactly how a turn plays. And the only thing we can really do at the beginning of the game is perform an explore action. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw the top card here. And the first card is a little bit special because it can only be placed at the top of your ship card. And one of the waypoints does have to cover the waypoint on that card. So this or this would be a perfectly valid placement. I think I'm just going to go ahead and place it like this because it fits a little bit nicer on the screen. But for this next card, I'm going to sacrifice strategy in order to do something a little bit different and show you that you can take from the bottom of the deck blindly. And after you've placed that first card from this point forward, the placement rules are all the same when it comes to placing more of these path cards. And those rules are that it always has to form a continuous path, so I could go ahead and place it like that. But you can also go ahead and cover up as much of the other card as you like, so long as the path isn't broken and as long as it doesn't split into multiple directions. You do also always need to have at least one waypoint visible on every card, so putting the card like this wouldn't be a valid placement, but putting it like this actually would. And that placement's not a terrible choice because it does get me a shark fin as well as a tentacle, and it does get me 3 other icons. So for my next turn, I could go ahead and put this one into play. But before I do that, let's not forget that there is the additional restriction here because of this active marvel and because I'm playing with this side of the ship up. And that restriction was that one of the cards that I placed did have to cover up at least one path segment of another card. I more than did that, so that was a perfectly valid placement, and for my next turn I am going to put this one into play. We have all the icons we need, and when you are placing one of these cards, you're not allowed to cover any of the path or the waypoints, and you do always have to place them horizontally. Because I took the active marvel, we're going to be replacing it with the next one at the top of the deck here. This one's also a level 2, so the same restriction is going to be applying for the next card. For the next card, I'm going to draw from the bottom because I don't really like the card on the top. And I don't really like this one all that much either, but what I really want to do is cover up the least amount of path as possible because each visible path segment is worth 1 victory point at the end of the game. Unfortunately, I do have to cover up at least one of them because of this restriction that we still have in play. This card doesn't look like it's going to help us too much with either of these marvels, so I'm going to go ahead and draw one from the bottom. Placing it like that meets the restriction and also meets the requirements for placing this next marvel, so I think we'll go ahead and do that. 2 whirlpools plus 3 different icons, so it'll fit just like so. And now this level 1 is going to become the next active marvel, which has the restriction that the marvel deck may not be discovered, so this one has to be the next card that we do discover. This one needs a trident, so we're not quite ready for that yet. And I think this card at the top works fine. I think I'm going to flip this one around like this so we can go back in the other direction. We do have to place a second card here, and I don't think there's any risk from me drawing from the bottom, so let's go ahead and do that. And I think I am going to place it like that because it gets those 2 whirlpools together so we can cover those both up since they're worth -3 victory points. Which means that this level 3 marvel is now the active marvel, and I'm glad that we covered those whirlpools up because anytime that we have a level 3 as the active marvel, we are not able to cover up whirlpools when we add these map cards. This marvel is actually going to be pretty difficult to place because it does need to cover at least 3 icons of the same type, so let's see if we can accomplish that. This card's not super useful, so let's draw from the bottom. I don't really like this move, but I think I'm going to place it like that. It at least gets these 2 tentacles together, and then I can actually place this card like that. And that actually works out perfect because although I'm not allowed to cover whirlpools with exploration cards, I am still allowed to cover them with discovery cards. And this one has to cover 4 icons, and 3 of them do have to be of the same type, so we're going to perform a discovery action next. Place this here to cover those icons, which does include 3 tentacles. This last marvel card becomes our active one, which is also a level 3, which means that we still can't cover whirlpools with other exploration cards. And the restriction on this one is that it does have to cover exactly 3 different types of icons, so let's see if we can make that happen. I think we're pretty safe to draw from the bottom of the deck here, so let's do that. I'm actually going to place this one like that so that this whirlpool is far away from our next card since we're not allowed to cover whirlpools. And I don't know how this is going to work, but I don't think this card is that useful to me, so let's draw blindly from the bottom and see what we get. I just realized that this card I just drew, as well as the card that I could have just taken, are both equally awesome for me because they have 3 different icons right on them. I don't know why I didn't see that already. That means I can just place this anywhere where those are isolated, which allows me to do a discovery action as my next action, and that meets the requirement of that card. So I got all my discovery cards out, so that is really nice for a couple reasons. First, it means that I am going to be getting 5 victory points at the end of the game. Now that I've put all of them into play, I don't have any restrictions on me for the remaining 2 cards here. I already have 3 visible shark fins, which are worth 2 victory points at the end of the game, which is good. But if I get over 4 of them visible by the end of the game, then that is actually going to lose me the game, so I just want to be aware of that as I place these last couple cards. This top card doesn't have a shark fin on it, so I'm going to take the one at the bottom because I don't want to get stuck with a card with too many shark fins at the end of the game. And that was a good choice because if I had all of these shark fins visible at the end, I would have lost because that's a total of 5. I'm going to place it like that because it does cover one of the shark fins, but then it also gets those 2 whirlpools close to each other so that I can try to cover them with this last card, which I'm not really able to do totally, but I can cover one of them at least. I think we did pretty good here. Now we're just going to go ahead and add up the victory points. If we have less than 40, then we still lose the game because less than 40 victory points means that you're lost at sea. Each path segment is worth a victory point. Waypoints aren't worth anything, so I'll just go ahead and tally those up quick. So we have 33 points from the path segments alone, plus we get 5 victory points for having placed all of the marvels. So that's 38, plus we're going to get 2 victory points for each of the visible icons, and we haven't breached any of the thresholds for any of them, so we're good here. So that's an additional 12 points, which puts us at 50 victory points. But we are going to lose 3 for each of the whirlpools, so that puts us down 6, which is 44 points. The best score you can achieve is over 50 victory points, but 44 is not bad either because it is a successful voyage, which means we didn't die. So I think I did pretty good again, and I think I just do really well on camera because I'm extra slow and tedious as I'm filming all of this, especially with all the retakes that you don't actually see in the final footage. And I definitely didn't need to go through the full game to show you how this plays, but I did have a lot of fun with this one, and I swear Button Shy Games is slowly turning me into a solo gamer. I'm always really impressed with their games, and this one especially was very puzzly, so if you are into puzzly games, I think this is definitely one that you will want to check out. And you don't have to play this one solo. It is rated up to 4 players, and when you're playing with more people, you're just going to be alternating turns, choosing whether to take an explorer or a discovery action on your turn. But if you like what you saw here and you want to check it out or grab yourself a copy, I will have a link to the campaign in the description down below, and there is also a print and play preview copy if you do want to try it for yourself. And this next campaign is also launching on April 1st, but I don't have a whole lot of info on this one other than it's the next game coming from Queen Games, and it's the next game from the designer Stan Kordonsky. This one is called Propeller Islands, and this is a competitive dice drafting resource management game where you're going to be building your own floating islands. Each turn, players are going to be drafting dice from a shrinking pool, and then you're going to be using them to gain new structures, produce different resources, and populate your buildings. This game's advertised to offer nearly endless amounts of strategies and layouts for your island because there are a whole variety of different buildings, many of which can even be upgraded, and each of these are going to be comboing and having a variety of different effects that can unlock new and powerful abilities. So depending on the buildings that you get and the ones that you decide to build, you're going to be creating different landscapes and different combo opportunities. Unfortunately, there's no other info on this one, so if you do want to learn more about it, you will have to check it out for yourself, but I will have it linked down below. Launch on April 2nd, we have Reichbusters Reloaded, and this one's going to be an upgraded version of the game Reichbusters, which is going to have upgraded components, but it's also going to be introducing a bunch of new content as well. If you do already own the original Reichbusters, I believe this will also have an upgrade kit so that you can upgrade it to this newer version. If you're not familiar with this game, this is a cooperative dudes on the map game where players are going to be controlling a specific elite military group that is working together to fight back against Nazi Germany, but this also includes some supernatural and science fiction elements as well. Players are going to be using their actions to move and fight and try to complete different mission objectives, and combat in this game is resolved using dice rolling. And this one is coming from Monolith, so there's going to be a ton of really high quality miniatures for all the different terrain, units, and enemies that you're going to be going up against. If this sounds interesting to you, you can go ahead and check it out, and I will have it linked down below. And launch on April 5th, we have Six-Sided Summoner, and this one's a story-driven modular adventure game that does take inspiration from RPGs, and it does feature dice-based combat. Players are going to be playing as summoners, exploring a fantasy world, completing quests, collecting gear, and facing off against dark creatures. On a player's turn, they're going to be performing one of 4 possible actions. They can either explore to reveal new parts of the map and discover quests or different gates or hidden threats. They can interact by talking to different NPCs, accepting or completing quests, or engaging with world events. If there's monsters, you can battle them through dice rolling. Or your final action is to summon, which allows you to use your powers to call forth different allies and effects that can aid you in your journey. I don't have a whole lot of info on how this one plays, but it is going to be a scenario-based game with each scenario having different win and loss conditions, and I believe each one will culminate to a final boss battle. If you want to learn more, I will have it linked in the description down below. That's everything for this week, but don't leave yet because we still got a few awesome giveaways to announce, and the first one here is going to be for Hercules and the 12 Labors. This one's a solo game where you're going to be using dice to go up against all sorts of different beasts, and for each one that you conquer, you're going to be getting some sort of reward out of it that's going to be helping you for your future battles. If you do like solo games, this one's definitely a treat because it has really nice components, beautiful artwork, and it does also feature foil cards. This giveaway will get you a copy of the game as well as all promos and stretch goals, but this one is only offered in North America, so I'm only going to be drawing from the YouTube comments for this one, and if you are able to enter this one, feel free to leave a comment down below with the hashtag Hercules. And you can say anything that you want, but if you're looking for something in particular, maybe you could let us know what your favorite Greek mythological story or character is. For myself, I've always had a soft spot for Medusa. Even though she's always portrayed as this hideous evil monster, that is definitely not the case. I'm not going to get into all the details here because, like most Greek mythological stories, it is not safe for work. Not at all, and it is very tragic. These next couple giveaways are going to be offered worldwide, and the next one is called DuelGeon, and this one is a pocket-sized dungeon crawler. Players are going to be taking turns either battling monsters, battling other adventurers, or trying to scavenge as much loot as possible. And you're trying to do this quickly because the dungeon will collapse after a set number of turns. Players do play over 3 different levels of dungeons, trying to collect the most loot as possible because it is the player with the most at the end of the game that is going to be the winner. And we're going to run this one and the next one over on the Discord, and all you got to do to enter these giveaways is head over to the Discord in the description down below, check out the giveaways channel, and then click the emoji underneath that giveaway. This is going to be automatically drawn at the end of the week, and there's no cost to joining the Discord, and I do have all notifications turned off by default, so you're not going to have to worry about getting spammed or anything like that. But there is a lot of useful info, and you can even see further into the future for games that are going to be coming up in the next week or the next month. So if you are interested in even more content, the Discord is definitely worth checking out. And the next giveaway is for a pledge for Fear of the Dark, and this one's a solo game where you're going to be trying to use action cards in order to try and escape a maze of darkness. Your action cards are one-time use unless you have a matchlet when you play that action card, and if you do, you can choose to use it for its action and keep the card, or you can use it for its more powerful action and still choose to discard that card. You only have a limited amount of matches, so you're going to have to be very careful when you decide to strike those and which action cards you choose to use, because if you don't escape the maze by the time you've used your last match, then you're stuck there forever and you have lost the game. Just like the previous giveaway, this one will also be on the Discord, so you can find a link to that in the description down below. Same thing here, just click that emoji and this is going to be automatically drawn at the end of the week. Good luck in the giveaways, but now let's go ahead and draw the winners for last week's giveaways, and we had a pledge for ZeroDay.exe, Gudnak, the card game, LUDOS, the Ancient Games Collection, Americas, and then a pledge for Misfit Heroes. And we're going to draw for Misfit Heroes first because this one was only offering free shipping to North America, so we're going to draw this one only from the YouTube comments. So I added the hashtag here. We're not going to add the extra entries just yet, so let's go ahead and grab those comments and draw a winner. And the winner for Misfit Heroes is Love Has No Logic 1. Congrats on the win here. I do appreciate you checking out the channel and joining in on the fun, and I'm happy to help get another game added to your shelf. Just email me at adam@shelfclutter.com and I'll get that all sorted out for you. Now let's go ahead and draw for ZeroDay.exe, and I did add the extra entries for the members over on Ko-fi, and if you do like this sort of content, you want to help support my efforts here, I really do appreciate it, and I do have a link to my Ko-fi in the description down below. But I have updated the YouTube comments, so let's go ahead and draw the next winner here. And the winner for ZeroDay is Dylan Norlock, who is a member over on Ko-fi, so congratulations on the win here. Feel free to email me at adam@shelfclutter.com or message me on Ko-fi. Otherwise, I will reach out to you and let you know that you did win a pledge here. Next, we'll draw for LUDOS America, and we'll just do the exact same thing here and pick another winner. And the winner of LUDOS Americas is Boobag792852249, who is also a member of Ko-fi. Congratulations on the win. Feel free to email me or I will reach out to you if I do not hear from you. And last but not least, we have Gudnak, the card game, so let's go ahead and draw the winner for that. And the winner is Radoslav Ganato. Congratulations on the win. Just email me at adam@shelfclutter.com and we'll get that pledge all sorted out for you. And that is everything I got for you this week. I really do appreciate you tuning in and checking out the video. But until next time, keep that shelf cluttered and the table full. Oh.